And we're live.
Right.
You
Oh, wow.
guys
There's
just
a lot of
missed some
comments.
prime Gen Z versus millennial jeans conversation. I saw a great TikTok today.
I'm doing a center part today, guys.
She
I'm
is.
like,
She's
I'm not
living her
being a
best Gen Z
millennial,
life.
apparently.
I saw a great TikTok today about like how Gen Z did not survive the trauma of low-rise jeans, so they don't understand they don't understand how good they have it.
I mean, look, what
But
were we
honestly,
thinking?
though,
They're gonna come back, you know. I mean,
I
yeah,
hope not.
everything does.
That's one trend that can stay exactly where it is in the past.
Yeah. Nope. I will be sitting over here in my stretchy pants, not wearing low rise ever again. So welcome everyone. We got a good crowd going already. Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, people are excited for this topic. Hello to Ottawa. I've got ice and snow, so I'm feeling my Canadian, tangential roots tonight. Hopefully my power won't go out again. If it does, it's the winter storm's fault, not mine.
It's so weird because it was like 52 degrees in New York today, and then it's like freezing temperatures in Texas. Like, what is happening? I don't even know.
That's so bad.
Poor Texas.
That's like so warm. I just wore a sweatshirt. I was like, what is this?
Yeah. Poor Texas. I know. I cannot wear a center part. It makes me look like I'm in some sort of like religious fringe movement. Like it's not the look for me. Okay, yes, thank you. Low rise was an abomination before the Lord.
Yeah.
Hello to London.
All right, Mara, with the one-liners for the night.
Crime against Apple body types. Preach.
Look, yeah, 100%.
Tails. Oh my gosh. Oh, rolling blackouts. Stay safe, Beth. I hope you stay warm. Okay, so man, things are popping already in here tonight, guys. Okay.
Hey.
So I'm gonna start. Oh man. Okay, good luck, Amanda. Yeah, it's too cold. I'm not climate change. Yeah, for real.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, South Dakota. That's rough. Stay warm, everyone. Okay. Yeah. So disclaimers before we get going. I'm going to try my best to have a tighter eye on chat tonight because there are a few things I will not have time for. I will not have time for anything that is outright hateful with respect to people's bodies, but I also will not have any time for people who are what I would describe as concern trolling, which is, showing plus size bodies means that you're promoting an unhealthy lifestyle. You can take that and the like industrial diet complex bullshit that is wrapped up in it and take it somewhere else because we can maybe talk more about why that is such a misogynistic, patriarchal, like racist position. We can get there. But just know on the front end, like not going to be doing that. And then I also just wanted to give a disclaimer, a little less harsh. Sorry. When I have guests on, I'm like, if you come for any of my people, like I've got my nail file and if it's just me, I'll take it. But
well, your block button is really like what
my block button's ready to go, and I will viciously file my nails in your direction. Less aggressively. In terms of just terminology, one thing is that I don't think that there's a lot of sort of like accepted, widely used nomenclature that all people who would potentially be identified as plus size or like not slender, however we want to say this, kind of align with. I personally like to be called fat because like I want to destigmatize there being some sort of like moral judgment with that, but I totally understand that that is not something everybody's comfortable with. Just know if I use that term, it is coming from a place of like, this is a descriptor the same way thin is a descriptor. But I'm going to try to stick with plus size. I think that's sort of the most neutral, plus size, curvy. I don't think any of us love overweight, which we could also get into. But anyway, just in terms of terminology, some kind of table setting there of if you hear a term that you don't identify with, totally hear you. I think it's hard to get a consensus going kind of when it comes to this stuff. So,
yeah.
Okay, also round, I honestly kind of want to bring back stout, which was what it used. That's like the old-timey version of plus size, and it makes me think of I'm a little teapot short and stout because I am. So there you go.
Oh, there's another good one. It's escaping me right now.
That's me too. Stout, round, rotund,
no, there's like
Rubenesque.
I say thick.
Rubenesque is good.
Thick is probably the best one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I remember the first time someone called me thick. I was like, "What does that mean?" I wasn't like freshman year of high school.
Or people say like big boned.
I like fat,
Did you get that one?
And big bone.
Big bone.
Also, I love that men get called husky, which I think is really a funny term. I don't know why, but it always makes me laugh. But I like thickums. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're getting still using husky. I do like that. Stout is a Hobbit vibe, which I could be down with.
I hear that.
Pleasantly plump, portly. We've got a thesaurus happening here. Yeah, I'm built for endurance. I should put that on my dating profile. Anyway,
the one-liners continue.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. It's like
okay, so that's just a woman of substance, both morally, intellectually, and physically, like just all around.
Yes, Aaron, it was a guy. Aaron asked me, was it first time I got called thick? Was it from a guy? Yes, it was.
Unsurprisingly, I feel like thick has like a slightly more sexual connotation to it, you know.
It does,
right? I mean, like, doesn't it? Like,
the double C definitely does.
Yeah,
it definitely does.
It's not a bad thing. Just like it's a different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So with that being said, the topic for tonight, I guess I didn't actually say it, though it's in the title, is that we're going to talk about plus size representation, specifically in romance, but I think we can probably branch out kind of across genres. And what inspired this was one book that I know both Bethany and Ashley felt like did not do a great job with its plus size representation. I have not read this book, but I would like to learn more about their opinion. So maybe taking kind of a case study of where we think it doesn't work as well. And then we've all, I believe, read Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, which I don't think is perfect, but I think is a good example of like a much better, in our opinion, version of plus size representation. So let's start with the negative because it's more fun. So
like I already made a 17-minute rant video about this book.
Which I always refer to anytime I talk about that book. I'm like, and link to the parts of my book.
Look, I still get comments on my Goodreads review for it all the time. Like people like, yes, this is what I thought. And other people being like, I don't agree with you. I'm like, I'm just ignoring the comments at this point, but like, that's fine.
Yeah, just have fun, guys.
Yeah.
So do you want to give maybe like a overview of what the book is about before we dive into what we didn't like about it?
So the book we're talking about is One to Watch by Kate Stayman London. And I do want to say this, like, because having had pushback in lots of comments, I see a lot of people liking the fact that it's about a woman on a journey towards self-acceptance. There are other problems with the books, but like, here's the thing. This book was pitched as confident plus size influencer is like the first Bachelorette. on television and she's confident and she feels good about her body. And that was not what we got. So like, I think for me, part of it is like expectations were one thing and like the reality was the other thing. And she was one of the most insecure characters about her body. It was ridiculous. And like for me, like there's a place for a book like that, but like tell us going in that's what it is. Like don't pitch it as like, ooh, confident, body positive. I'm like that's not what this was. Anyway, that's my Ashley, whatever you have to add.
I went into the book kind of thinking the same thing. Like the whole essence of the book was going to be this woman who's confident in herself goes to make space in an arena where typically plus size fat women don't have the capability to be within that arena. And first of all, that book as a whole is just a whole problem. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that went wrong with that book.
True.
But I felt like that book reinforced stereotypes that people have about plus size individuals. Like even when she got upset ordering the Doritos and the frozen meals, and I'm like, it was for me, it felt very one-sided. Like it was, okay, plus size fat people may do this. And Bethany, you said this a few times when you talked about the book, like, but also this, like, it was just very tunnel vision to me. And I think my whole experience with the book, it was just, I saw, and, part of this could be my own perception, and I don't ever like to assume, but a couple of people who had watched my video in which I talked about it in a wrap up, I didn't do a standalone review, were saying like, it was very weird having people who don't necessarily identify as plus size or fat say that it was good rep. And then you have a lot of people who are plus size or fat saying this was not good. And it was just it was very interesting just to watch the reviews come out about that book. I had somebody too comment on my review and said, well, at least there was rep. And I was like, see, that's, I didn't even respond. I said, that's the problem right there. That's not okay. So yeah,
100%. Well, and I think that's the thing is like, it did promote kind of all of the worst stereotypes of fat people. And I mean, this is the thing is like, are there fat people who fall into some of those things? Of course. However, if this is like the book for body positivity for the year, which is really what it was positioning itself as, you need to do better. And so things like, like her getting upset and having this like list of groceries she's ordering that's all like Doritos and soda and ice cream and stuff, like, and not nary a vegetable to be seen, or like the fact that she's so sensitive about like people asking her to work out, and like instead of coming back and being like, well, yeah, I do yoga or I do this or that, she just like freaks out and leaves on camera, right? Like when some of the guys on the show, because it's set up like a bachelorette style thing. And like, this is not to say that all fat representation needs to mean people who like eat a perfectly healthy diet all the time or exercise all the time. Like that's not it. But like, you're going to have like an insecure woman who eats junk food, doesn't exercise, feels terrible about herself, can't accept that men are attracted to her. Like it is all the worst possible aspects. And then you're pitching that as the body positive romance of the year. Like, hell no.
Not at all.
Well, and a question, because one thing that I also think comes up sometimes in fat rep or plus size rep, what was your sense of how like her actual body type? Was she, just sort of thicker? Was she like truly, did she have, I guess what I'm trying to get at is I think often plus size rep stops at, you have this perfect hourglass, you're just a couple of sizes bigger than the kind of conventional, like, did you get a sense of if she had like real belly? Like, I don't want to judge this fictional character. I'm just trying to get a sense of how plus size, like what kind of plus size rep we're talking about.
I mean, I would say like, I got the feel of like moderately plus size, if that's like, I don't know if Ashley, what you like and I wasn't reading closely. I don't know, but like in my head, I was like, she's probably like a size 18 or something. I don't know.
That's
like,
what I was thinking.
Kind of plus size,
I was thinking she was just thick.
Yeah.
That was my perception, is that she was just thick. and like Bethany said, not, I would say around the same size, but I wasn't reading. And I also feel like it just wasn't that clear either.
No.
She almost didn't paint a clear picture of what, like, if we're talking about a quote unquote spectrum, like where she would have been. It wasn't as clear cut for me, honestly, in reading it, if I'm being truthful. So who knows?
Just that she saw herself as very different from like the Hollywood type, which, I mean, that could be a 12. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, you could be a size 12 and like you're dramatically different from a bachelorette size. Like, so it was very unclear.
Mm-hmm.
And I get, that's one thing I get kind of, I go around in circles in my head about it, because like, for instance, a book I really enjoyed was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. But I heard, and actually I think Bethany, you had this problem with this book, that you didn't think it was good plus size rep, but I didn't even register that the character was meant to really be plus size. Like, I just read her as sort of like a little insecure about her body. She's maybe put on a little bit of weight, but not like plus size per se.
Well,
so
see,
I always wonder like how,
that way. I had seen it,
and I guess maybe
way.
And I hadn't seen that, so maybe that also colored but I do think that's just in terms of something that bothers me. I do think often it's sort of like it can feed into kind of like the fashion industry's version of what is plus size.
Exactly.
When books are not specific about what we're really talking about, because like, I think most women who live in Western countries anyway, like, I don't want to speak for the entire world, but at least sort of like Western ideas of beauty standards, there is all women are indoctrinated from birth, basically, that they are too fat, even if they are a size 4 or whatever. So like, it gets a little hairy to me sometimes where they're kind of saying there's plus size rep, but I'm like, okay, well, I think the average American woman is a size 12 or 14. Like, are you actually larger than most women? I can't tell.
Like, does it count as fat rep if they would be buying like the smallest size at Torrid?
And I mean, and then I don't want to like, I think, because I've been those sizes at sometimes where I'm kind of between plus size and straight size.
Yeah, no,
I get it. The struggle is still real, but like, it's also, I don't know. I do get a little squeamish about people having like tons of hangups about being plus size when then I find out they're like a size 10.
Somebody was like, that's another one-liner right there.
Darcy.
Oh man.
So what I'm hearing then is, in this book, the character, the pitch is that this is a very body positive character or very body positive message, but actually it's more of a journey. Maybe is like that the most charitable reading. It's a journey of reaching body positivity.
Moving closer to body positivity.
Moving from like maybe abject hatred of your own body to like maybe just like
maybe
not
I could learn
to grudging acceptance.
I've read so many reviews of that book where people have given it just glowing reviews, and I'm like, I don't think we've read the same book because gosh, I strongly dislike that book. I really, really did.
I thought you'd appreciate this, Bethany.
It is fun. That is true. Journey to find love for her body.
Yeah. Well, I think other things that I didn't read this book, but just thinking of other things I don't enjoy when plus size characters are represented, specifically in romance. Mm-hmm. So there is a whole subcategory of romances called BBW, which is Big Beautiful Woman. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, before I even get into this, but I don't know how you guys feel about this. I tend to find those books very fetishizing of larger bodies in a way that I could see some people finding empowering, But for me, I find it reminds me of like on dating apps where I realize that guys are just like into like fat women and like they're not interested in me, they're just like into my body type.
Yeah.
It's like that, but in a romance, and that's not what I come to a romance for. These are supposed to be by women, about women, and for women. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
I stay with those.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, I mean, like, that's not really my cup of tea either. But I think it's so complicated, especially with romance, because, you know, frequently the way things are written, and I mean, like, to be fair, like, for many people in real life, like, physical attraction is the beginning of how the relationship starts, right? And I don't know. There's so much to unpack here, right? Too, because I think the it's so complicated of people's actual, like, what people are actually attracted to versus what they're socialized to think that they want. And you know, and there's even been studies about that, about like men who are like actually, you know, attracted to women with curvier bodies or plus size bodies, but like would go choose a spouse who doesn't have that for like social reasons, right?
Yeah.
And so there's so much mess associated with it. And, you know, and then the language that's used is so frequently, and I think you see this in One to Watch, I think it's like overly focused on, is like this disgust, or this like, oh, that like is not attractive, or that's not sexy, which like I don't know that many people actually, I mean, there are people who probably maybe feel that way, but like I think many people really truly don't, but they're in denial. It's sort of like, you know, the people with like internalized homophobia or something. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it reminds me of that, like the people who don't want to admit something because they're scared of what it means socially for them. And so I don't know, like, I don't know in a contemporary romance how we appropriately tackle that. I think like some of the good examples I've seen have been things where you have a hero who is just like, you know, generally attracted to women of all shapes and sizes, but like really connects emotionally with this one woman. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know, but I think that's part of why it's complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this from Katrina about how men see plus size women.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what I don't like about the BBW books is that it's still centering the male gaze,
right?
As opposed to having it be about kind of like what you were saying, Bethany. I think some of the more successful ones, it's like I'm attracted to you because I like you and I like your body.
Yeah.
It's hard. I do think it takes some care and it is a little difficult, but I think the sweet spot is communicating, yes, the hero is actually attracted to the heroine. It's not, her body is not the only thing he finds attractive about her, but her body is attractive to him and is even more attractive to him because it's hers.
Yeah.
Which I know is a tall order.
Yeah.
But I think that's like kind of, that's what you deserve in life, folks. But that's also like what I
100%.
think we should be moving towards in a book.
Yeah. Because it's also icky when you have a hero who's like, I've come to be okay with your body because I love you so much, and that's gross. Like, and I've seen that. I mean, and it's like, no, that's not.
Yeah. That's also
disgusting.
Yeah. Beth pointing out that larger men also don't get good rep. And I think that's a great point. I actually think Rebecca Weatherspoon is one of the only authors I can think of. Well, Jessa Kane does have a series right now with like larger guys, and it's called like Husky, Burly. I forget what, like, but they're kind of bonkers, 100-page novellas that I enjoy. But anyway, she's doing that. But Rebecca Weatherspoon, I think, consistently has larger guys who are just sort of like,
yeah. She also has a lot of plus size heroines too. Not all of them, but some of them. And you know, I think she does a pretty good job with that.
Yeah. Talking about Zini, which I thought was a good one. Okay, a question for One to Watch. Did the book put work into making her love interest desirable besides being hot and attracted to her?
The love interest was underdeveloped. Like the romance in general was underdeveloped.
The whole listen, let me tell you something. That book was a book of tokenizing if I have ever seen one, okay? So that whole thing, even about her love interest, it was just weird. It was so, the whole book itself for me was just strange because she literally tried to check box every single thing that she could think of, whether it was race, ethnicity, sexuality, gender identity, plus size. It was a hot mess.
Yeah.
So like Bethany said, it was so underdeveloped because her love interest ended up being so underdeveloped because she was too busy trying to tokenize every marginalized group in the book that she could get away with.
Yeah. Yep. And using bad stereotypes. Well, and what's funny is I talk about this in my review of it, that a lot of, and I had so many comments of people being like, oh my gosh, till I saw your review, I didn't even realize that like this love, like of the, because I'm not, without spoiling like who she ends up with, but like that there's like a Black love interest and an Asian love interest, and people like, I didn't even realize
exactly
that this guy was Asian, and I didn't realize till the end of the book he was Black because I missed that, and like it was so poorly done. Like
they could have been anybody.
It was not good.
Really, I was gonna say, this is some evocative character building you're hinting at here.
That's why I keep
just like paper.
And then there's the stereotyped bisexual French man who's like
you're sending Ashley back to a dark place.
Because I just can't. There's things like, okay, if I like a book and somebody doesn't like it, or somebody likes a book and I don't like it, usually I'm able to understand. Usually I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of see it. I can see where people would enjoy this. This one, I genuinely don't get it.
Like,
from
who is
the
this for?
Stereotyping, the check boxing, the crappy fat rep. I'm like, why is this book so popular?
It's a bummer because it could have been, like, it has a lot of potential. Like what it does well is the Bachelor stuff. Like, it's clear that she's a fan of The Bachelor. She knows how the show works, and she like does the mechanics well. Like, that was the best part of the book.
Exactly.
The romance, the characters were terrible. Like, it was just, I don't know.
She just wrote a book about The Bachelor. That would have been better than trying to do all this extra stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Ashley's so offended. I can just see it in her eyes, her just indignation at like how dare this book be so bad?
Because of the way that it's marketed, and people just, oh my gosh, this book was so good. She went on such a journey, and I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, and then the people being upset, like I get people in the comments being like, well, why does the representation of a Black person have to fall into your idea of stereotypes of what Black people are like? And I was like,
anybody with two eyes should have known that was not okay.
It was not good. Well, and she has the Black character be this like guy who wants to be an artist who's living at home with his wealthy parents and like doesn't have a job. Like, it was just like, I was like, really?
Awful.
It was so bad.
Then she forgets that he's Black for the rest of the book.
Yeah. Well, it's like
he comes back later and she describes him as being like lightly tanned, so, like, and you're like, wait, what?
So at the very end of the book, so they mentioned, because I flipped back to look because I was like, did I miss this? So I flipped back to check before I wrote my review, and I was like, yep, he was introduced at the beginning of the show as Black, and then the next time we hear about it is at the end, for reasons, like when at the end it's brought up again. And I was like, I bet you most people get to the end and are like, oh yeah, I forgot he was Black. And then I said that in my review, and I can't tell you how many people commented and like were like, yeah, yes. I read it and I forgot he was
Black. That's what I was like, the whole book, I was like, well, what was the point of him being Black?
To have a Black character, I guess. I don't know. It's like she was trying to address the racial problems with The Bachelor, but doing it in the same way that The Bachelor has problems with tokenizing racism.
The whole book
it's like
was
you see it, but you don't know how to address it.
I'm like, you see it, but you're doing what they do to try to address it, where like they tokenize it. It was so, oh man. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I wanted to Daniela had, I thought, a good summary of, I'm really sick of there being a dichotomy of plus size book characters either being the clumsy best friend or the badass girl who is confident in spite of her body. And I do think that there's this third kind of route, which is the like what you're describing, where they're neither a badass nor are they just sort of like a clumsy best friend on a journey. They're just sort of like trapped in their own insecurities for a lot of the book.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is a good point because I think there are some kind of stereotypes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I honestly think some of this gets into the way representation is needed across like a lot of different areas, which is we just need more of it. Like different kinds of characters with different kinds of stories who are fat or plus size. And like that's just a part of how their character is built.
Yeah. I mean, I think a good example of a book where the character goes on a journey and doesn't necessarily love her body, but is still confident in other ways, that's done well, is Brazen and the Beast by Sarah McLean. Like, I think that is a good example of like good fat representation where the character isn't necessarily totally confident in her body. And goes on somewhat of a journey. Like, but I think that one was done pretty well. So like, it's not like you can't do that and like have that in a romance if it's done well and marketed appropriately. But yeah,
that is a good point.
This is a great point. It'd be nice if the catalyst wasn't someone finding the main character attractive. Yeah, of like, oh, you mean this like textbook perfect male model looking man finds me attractive? That means that maybe I have some value as a person. Like,
oh man, see that
okay,
messes with your head,
setting people up for failure. Because
I mean, I know not everybody can have my life, so like I don't want other people to feel bad if they don't have male models just falling all over themselves like I do.
Well,
so
I'm done.
Yeah,
you know, I want to make sure. I'm beating them off with a stick, but not everybody has that life. So,
oh my gosh, like, I saw somebody was asking about good plus size rep for gay men in books.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I think I could be wrong about this, but like I want to say one of the characters in Meet Cute Club is like small fat.
That was the impression I got. He's thick. He's
thick, yeah. So and that's own voices for the gay representation. So like that Meet Cute Club by Jack Harbin is a really good cute one. So that would be my recommendation for that.
Yeah, I avoid non-own voices male romance, so I don't have a huge repertoire of recommendations, unfortunately. But
I mostly do, although I do read some. I do think actually Adriana Herrera, some of her characters are more like thick also, and she writes some male romances. So
people are talking about how also there's misrepresentation on the book covers where it's like, oh, they're supposed, which actually may transition well into our positive case study, because I do appreciate that on the cover of spoiler alert,
I love
the
the
heroine
cover
is
so much.
actually plus size.
Yes, it's beautiful.
It's a huge issue, I do think, in plus books that are supposed to have plus size rep, or it's either that they're thin or they're shown as that sort of hourglass. Like, you know, you have the Y. Basically, I think a lot of times what is supposed to be plus size rep is actually describing more like a Kim Kardashian kind of body type, where it's like, or you know, like Megan Thee Stallion. Now, granted, if I mean, I would pay a lot of money to look like Megan Thee Stallion, but you know, like big titties, little waist, like you know.
Body.
I love it. Yeah, body. I mean, I rock out to that song, but I'm not living in a delusion that I got the itty bitty waist that goes along with the big titties. So, you know, like they're beautiful women, but that's not necessarily what I think of as like plus size. But that's often what you see on covers is sort of like that violin shape, and it's like, oh, that's not. Don't love that, guys.
Yeah,
show more belly fat here.
Or cover models who are thin even though the description in the book is not.
Yeah.
Which is so annoying, especially in historical romances. I keep seeing that.
It drives me crazy.
Oh, like actually, I think I liked this book more than you did, Mara, but what was that one by Susanna something or other?
Craig?
Susanna Craig, yeah.
Which who's that Earl?
She's not plus size. The cover of Brazen and the Beast.
Well, Brazen and the Beast is like kind of plus size looking, but not like super plus size. I mean, it's better than other versions. Yeah, no, but
I love this too. Where are the big bellies that used to hang over our low-rise jeans? Yes, I feel that comment on a spiritual level.
Yes. Okay. Who's That Earl? Who's That Earl by Susanna Craig has a small cover
that was
model,
like
a thin. It was fun. I liked it, but the cover model is thin, but in the text she is described as being plus size.
Yeah. That's a good point. I honestly forgot that just because I think of that cover model. I mean, the cover models really do influence a lot of how I visualize the characters sometimes. So I will forget that characters are meant to be plus size if they're looking, like a size 6 on the cover.
Well, and similarly, one of Courtney Milan's books in the Brothers Sinister series also has a small plus size character, but the cover model is thin. I was looking for this because I was doing a video about plus size representation. Also, so I was paying closer attention to it.
Belly Ellie.
I love this Belly Ellie. I love that. I think Rose Lerner actually has a historical with a plus size heroine, and she is plus size on the cover. It's actually a beautiful cover. And she kind of has the same cover treatment that Courtney Milan's books do, where it's just like the beautiful dress with the heroine. I can't remember the name of that book, but
I think should just do it. Yeah. Well, so the Heiress Effect, that's the one. I think she's like a size 16 or something, like basically is the equivalent when I was like reading it because it talks it. But yeah, she's like slightly plus size, but the cover, like you would never know from the cover model.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's what I said in that blog.
This is a great point that the most accurate plus size covers are illustrated rather than actual photos. This is a part of, I think, I know some people really hate illustrated covers, which if you just don't like the aesthetics of them, I'm not going to, people like what they like. I will say though, I think one of the forces of good for illustrated covers is that it has given an opportunity for a lot of different kinds of main characters to be correctly represented on covers. That includes, plus size rep, like we're talking about. That includes racial representation. Like there's often not as many good stock images of people from different races for cover images. Like having illustrated covers does essentially, I think, often get you more accurate representation of what the characters look like in the book.
Yeah.
This is a good point. I often also feel like authors trying to have better rep in their books get into murky waters when they try to make their identity a defining feature of the story when they're uneducated or are not own voices, I guess, maybe is the corollary there.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing too for me, and this was, I don't know, my feeling from reading One to Watch was that like, I don't know, who knows for sure, but like it gave me the vibe that the author like has some issues with her own body possibly. Like, it like that was how it read to me. So I think that's the thing too, is like, I don't know. Which I think one thing that's interesting is Olivia Dade, speaking of spoiler alert, has talked about that her earliest books, like she doesn't really love them so much anymore because they were before she went on her own journey towards body positivity, and that was like a process for her. Like I think her first trilogy or something, she's kind of like, yeah, maybe this isn't like the best for that, but yeah, it's interesting.
This is a good point. There are full-figured women I stand in the community who had very powerful, positive reading experiences reading One to Watch. So as with anything, there's going to be people who resonate with representation and people who don't.
Yeah.
The same way none of us can speak for like the female experience. We're not speaking for like the plus size experience. Different people are going to have different responses.
Well, and I think too, what you go in expecting affects it, because like I think there were people who went into it who maybe weren't necessarily looking for, like, because I went into it specifically looking for a book that was going to be about a confident plus size heroine, and it wasn't that. But I think, like, I know Chelsea from Chelsea Darling Reads liked it. And she's a plus size reviewer. So like there for sure are women who've had a more positive experience with it. Mine just wasn't. So,
yeah. I don't want to be, I said what I said.
Well, and I've not read it, so I'm going secondhand here, but
sure.
You know, the same way I wouldn't, you know, there have been books, like, for example, Leanna, our friend Leanna, hates Red Sister by Mark Lawrence and thinks that it's so not feminist at all, whereas I really loved the way that the women in that were portrayed, right? Same. So like there's going to be different experiences, even though so there's room for it. All these are opinions.
Can you highlight the comment from Victoria about Courtney Milan?
Let's see. I learned the stock image thing from Courtney Milan post discussing her difficulties finding a black stock image model. So think for sure she had the same issues with plus size.
Yeah, that makes sense
too. So I'm going to come at this from a different angle. I think that this depends on what subgenre or genre you may be working in, because
that's a good point.
If I'm talking about Black indie romance, you know, there are stock images that I've seen, you know, make their way around, but
for like contemporary.
Yeah, for like contemporary. But if you're talking about like maybe historicals, no, you won't. So it's I think subgenre also plays a big role in accessibility of stock images too. Just keep that in mind.
That's a great point. Though you can just Photoshop a gigantic skirt onto, you know, your cover model who's in like a prom dress. Just put like a big old hoop skirt on her. Bing, bang, boom. She's an historical.
There you go. Ta-da.
Well, things that I loved about, spoiler alert, to move towards like an example of, I think, a book. I do have, I don't think this was like perfectly done, but I think that it got a lot right. So I think things that it got right were, it was realistic about, I think, plus size women's expectations that they may have negative experiences from other people because of being plus size, but that not necessarily being that they themselves have a problem with their size. So for instance, like I'm aware that I'm a strong cup of tea for personality reasons, even aside from
we all kind of are.
Yeah, we probably all qualify there. But I'm not going to be everybody's physical type, and I've had a lot of what I would probably describe as like discriminatory experiences because of my size. So I'm aware that that may happen to me in a situation. That doesn't mean that I hate myself. Like I'm actually at a very happy place with how I think about my body. But that doesn't change the fact that I will have awareness going into certain situations that somebody may, be rude to me, whatever. So I thought that she got that very right, of the heroine walking that line of awareness, but not self-loathing.
Yeah. I loved like all of it. So I loved the way that that things were handled, where she was like happy with herself regardless of how other people felt about it. And I also appreciated the way it talked about her previous journey and dealing with a parent who had a lot of issues. Like I really identified with that, of like having a parent who's really uncomfortable with their own bodies and like having to learn to distance yourself from that in the process. I was like, yup, 100%. Like I could because I mean that's just been, that was a lot of my experience.
Yeah, and
not in the same way as her mom. Like obviously it was a little melodramatic because romance novel, but like yeah.
I like this of just a marginalized body, but I also like to see a fat character living boldly with a neutral perspective on her size. That's actually exactly what I like best. Is it's not like, it's when it's acknowledged, but not necessarily something that's like a main piece of the book. I often enjoy that, but it's hard to find because usually it's like a plot point.
It is. I did too. I heard so many good things about Spoiler Alert, and of course, I read it much quicker than anticipated because of Bethany. But that section is probably a section that I resonate. Well, both of the sections that you just talked about were probably two very, very high points for me in that book. Outside of a lot of other things in that book, I think were done very, very well. But my own personal experience in dealing with a parent that, I mean, horrific things. I mean, not handling conversations the way conversations should have been handled, dealing with their own insecurity and then the projection as a result. So that for me was something that I'd have never ever seen done before in terms of like body image. So that section for me was like, whew, wow, I feel like she's speaking to my soul. So, but it was also nice to see her as a character, not to be so confident in herself while still knowing, like, I know that there are going to be people out there that are going to do some really shitty things because people are going to be people. That's just,
people are shitty.
That's that's the world that we live in. But it was such a nice change, y'all. It was such a nice change from like not being. Maybe this is just me. I am past the point in my life. I think someone else has kind of talked about, Mara, you've already talked about this. I'm past the point of reading about journeys and, wanting to get to that place. I think for me personally, I just don't want to read stories like that anymore because for me, I feel like it just rehashes stuff that I've already dealt with. So I'm very, very hesitant in general now about picking up books that have quote unquote plus size or fat rep, because I'm like, is this going to be like genuinely, okay, I'm secure and this is, I'm just a character, or is this going to be, I'm going on this journey trying to find myself and, I'm going to find myself because this other character thinks that I'm beautiful in spite of being fat. And it's like, I can't do that anymore. I really can't. I'm not in that place anymore.
Yeah.
No.
I'm kind of with you on that. Yeah, I also just think part of what maybe was helpful about Spoiler Alert is the characters are older, I mean, she's like in her mid-30s, and I do feel like not everybody, but like at least for me, and I think for like a good number of some people, like you get to a point where you stop caring as much. Like, like it's not, and obviously like this is something that continues to be a struggle for people who are older too, like in some cases, but like I think it can be easier sometimes when you have an older character to portray them as having already figured this stuff out, like already having been on that journey. Because I mean, who doesn't deal with body insecurity when they're a teenager, regardless of who they are?
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, really loved it a lot. And I also think it's interesting as a comparison to One to Watch because both books deal with internet trolls. And I think Spoiler Alert does a better job of it. Like, it does a good job of showing how hateful the internet can be without going overboard and showing like all the vitriolic things over and over and over again. Like more balanced in terms. So, because One to Watch, like there's a lot of it.
One thing I really liked about the internet troll piece of it was our female main character knows it's going to come. Like she's mentally, like you can see, to your point, Ashley, she's been on a journey and it's not her like, this isn't new trauma for her. This is like old trauma that she like knows how to handle. I like
Yeah.
that. And then I like that the hero is also not going on a journey to learn to be
Nope.
her ally because of this. He's
Yeah.
already just a good person who's like, I don't
Mhm.
understand why you're being an asshole. Like, you guys are all just assholes. It's not a growth point for him either. Like,
No.
he
Yeah.
just immediately comes to her defense / like is not here for fat shaming bullshit because he's
Yep.
just a good person already.
Yep.
And then he meets her and he's like, oh, she's attractive to me.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like before they ever met on the internet, he was like, no, this is not cool.
Yeah.
I have no time for this. And then they meet and he's like, oh, her skin. Like,
It's like,
I loved it. I loved the way it was. Like,
well, and I think she does a really good job of him enjoying the heroine's body in a way that's not fetishistic. Like, it feels like he's just into her and he's into her body, and like I just thought that was a piece that was very well handled.
I
Definitely.
Yeah. I wanted to come to this point that the music snob brought up, because I think another good thing that this does is it shows. So part of the heroine's backstory is that her mother is incredibly, I would say, emotionally abusive around her weight.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what you come to see is that it's not coming from a place of the mom hates her. It's that she's projected her own trauma onto her daughter. And I felt like that was a much more realistic and also a much more nuanced portrayal of those kinds of interfamily dynamics, because that's certainly something I've experienced, and I'm sure a lot of plus size people have. It's not that her mother like hates her and is trying to like make her feel bad just to make her feel bad. It's well, nobody will ever love you.
Of you. Yep.
Yeah.
If you are like
it's
this,
like fear
and
for
it's
her
such
daughters.
a projection of her own like deepest
her own
wound
insecurity.
that you're just like,
yeah.
So I thought that was very well handled.
It's super tough, because I really feel like my even like Bethany said, like it is a bit melodramatic, but I mean, like, my experience is not that far removed from a mother who's not, you know what I'm saying, like she's not a hateful person.
Yeah.
But when you don't handle your own insecurities, especially regarding physical appearance, you look at
just
your
pass
child
that right on down.
along. And it was so important for me to read that, because I am raising a little girl. So for me, it's like I had to make sure that I dealt with any trauma that was passed on to me, and I have to make sure that I carry myself in a way that's like, I'm confident in who I am, in my body image. That way I'm not raising a little girl who's like, okay, so my mom is not comfortable, or my mom is passing on generational trauma regarding how she looks physically, which is why, like I told y'all earlier, I was ready to let that doctor have a straight piece of my mind, because I'm very much so at that point where I'm like, I can't, it has to stop with me, especially when it comes to body image and physical appearance. Like, it has to stop with me. And she needs to be that first generation that completely breaks away from what my great grandmother, my grandmother, and my mother and I have done, So that's why that book is really super, super important.
Yeah. I mean, and like, I don't have a daughter, I've got sons, but still, like, by the same token, like, I identify with that a lot. And there's things that, my mom did that I am very careful about. So, like, I do not talk negatively about myself or my body or how I feel in certain clothes I'm wearing or what I like. So even if I'm having a moment of insecurity, like, if that does not come out of my mouth, like, especially in front of, like, I mean, just in general, like, I just don't think that's, so, like, even if I'm having a day where I'm like, I'm not loving how this thing fits me or something, like, I'm not going to like say, or I'm not going to be like, oh, well, like, no, I don't wear, I don't know, like, I don't wear tank tops because I don't like how my arms look, or like things like that. I'm like, I don't feel that way, but like, I'm like, this is the sort of thing
past me would have. I definitely had a time where that's how I felt, but I also found that, to that point of like not passing on our own trauma to other people, I made a commitment to myself. I think I was probably about 25, that I was going to stop mentally policing how other women looked. Like, it's so ingrained in women to like, ooh, I don't like her hair. That's not a good lip color for her. That skirt is too short or too long, like whatever. And as I will tell you, when I made it a conscious practice to not do that to other women, my internal judgment of how I looked plummeted, because it's so much a tool to reinforce those things to ourselves and keep ourselves down. So I mean, yeah, anyway, I just think that generational thing, it's where it plays out the most acutely, because of just, we could spend a whole lot of time, with my therapist talking about these things, but it comes from a good place, but the more you are projecting that onto other people, the more you're just, it's like self-harm, really, like when you're projecting it onto other people, because you're telling yourself, this is the standard I have to live up to, and if I'm not living up to it, I'm failing, I'm bad, nobody will love me, nobody will want me, and it's like, if you just cut it off at the source.
Yep. I think that's great. That's good. Well, and I mean, similarly, I think just another thing that I think is a useful practice is like learning to be comfortable in your body, moving your body, doing things in your body, and not be self-conscious about it. I mean, so doing things like even at home with my kids, like dancing around the house or doing yoga, or like, like moving your body in different ways, like, and not worrying about like, oh, what does this angle look like? No one cares, like, I don't know, like, it's like stuff like that, like little things that I think you can internalize the ideas of like, oh, if I like sit the wrong way, or if I move the wrong way, things are going to look jiggle. I'm like, well, yeah, like, because everybody's bodies move that way. Like, that's normal. It's fine. Just like move, do what you want to do. I don't know. So it's like stuff like that where I really try to be, Mara. Well, we can keep talking. I know she said her internet has been like periodically cutting in and out, so I'll keep an eye on it. Like if
there she is.
You're back.
Okay.
Yay. Okay.
Winter storms, man. Internet is a little spotty. Apologies for that.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I just think it's like little stuff like that, like the practices that you do, the way you think, and the way you talk to yourself, the way you talk about yourself or talk about other people, like those things matter. Yeah.
Let's see here. Other things that we liked about the portrayal. I will say and this is just her being a character who's not perfect. Something I didn't love is I did find her to be a little overly defensive about her, like overly interpreting people's actions in relation to her size at times. But I think that was the character coming from a place of a lot of woundedness. But I did at times find like, oh, like, I think you're reading a lot into this scenario that I wouldn't necessarily have attributed to something because of my size, but maybe that, in the world of the book, that was her experience. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess like I probably sympathize because I have a tendency, not just with this, but with like other stuff too. Like I have to like actively tell myself not to do things like that in my head, like I'll have a tendency, like not just with weight, but with other things too. Like I'll have a tendency to like think, oh my goodness, like maybe this thing is like the worst possible scenario. And like, it's something I have to actively like try not to do. And be like, no, maybe it's this other thing instead. Like,
yeah, I just assume people think I'm an asshole. I don't assume that they don't like me because I'm fat. You know what I mean? I usually default to like, they just don't like me as a person. It's not my body.
Yeah, I mean, I don't usually think that particularly anymore, but I think I used to. So I don't know. I guess I had sympathy for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it was probably relatable to her experiences. It stood out to me of like, oh, she's reading in some scenarios. I was like, you're reading a lot into that. Like,
yeah, no, that's true. That's fair. She did. Having like so many things in the comments, like, wow.
I know.
This is good.
It's great conversation, guys.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah, the judgment of other women thing, it's very clear. And I don't want to hate on the older generations because, like, I think each generation we're like mucking some of this out. Like, patriarchy is a thing. like misogyny and racism that go along with. I'm reading this really interesting book right now called Fearing the Black Body, talking about how fat phobia is rooted in racism, basically. So, all the isms are tied up in this particular topic. And it's going to take generations to unpack that. So like I want to give grace to like the women who grew up in the 50s with like this perfect June Cleaver body that they were supposed to have or whatever. In the 60s, that little skinny straight twiggy body, like there's generational baggage, and each generation we're trying to just like throw a little bit more of the baggage off the back of the train, and hopefully by the time we get there it'll be an empty car. I don't know if it will be, but we'll try.
Yep. It's interesting. I was actually just reading some stuff about, and it related it to weight, which is what made me think of it. But how also the stuff about like women and body hair is also rooted in racism, which is interesting. Yeah. Because like there is this thing of like basically Caucasian women who are not Jewish and not brown tend to have less body hair, and this idea that like a lot of like this push to not have hair on the female body and be grossed out by it is like rooted in racist ideas, because like a lot of like Black and brown people or people from like India or whatever like tend to have more body hair, and women tend to have more body hair. And so it was really interesting, like there are some movements towards women letting their body hair grow. I'm not sure that I'm like quite there everywhere, but women and just accepting it and being like, hey, this is how my body is, why should we? And then like also patriarchy tied into it. So I just think it's interesting. Like, and then they related it to weight, that it's like this thing of like the thin hairless white form of beauty as the standard, which I think is
well. And then there's also the whole like porn piece of body hair, like in those standards.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm sort of like
unrealistic.
I will like shave my legs and arms or underarms or whatever, but like most things I'm like it's like I don't know. I don't know if I want to say this thing on the live stream.
I'm trying to decide what my line of oversharing is. I could just see that mentally. Like,
that was exactly it. But like, I don't know. There's like some weird stuff out there. Okay, I'll just say, like, so before I got married, like in my bachelorette party, which was like 10 years ago, I had people being like, oh, aren't you gonna like get a Brazilian? And I was like, no, because why would I start that as the standard for upkeep?
Honey, past 10 years, your girl has been take me as I am. It is all the same, I promise you.
Yeah. Like, why would you set that as like the normal thing? I just like, no. But what's interesting is that these women were like shocked by that. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
My position on that's always been like, I'm willing to have that conversation, but it has to be a two-way street. Like, if you think that I'm going to the waxer and you better
go right in the passenger seat.
Yeah, I was like, if this is a couples waxing massage appointment, whatever, sure. But like, this is not a one-way street.
Why am I behind a single now?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm sitting here alone in quarantine. I do just want to Fearing the Black Body is excellent so far. It's by Sabrina Strings. And it's really, really good. I very much recommend it. I've obviously not finished it yet, but even just what I've read so far has been worth the price of admission. So
I'm very interested in that. But just, I, as a Black woman, find it very, very intriguing. Just conversations, stereotyping, and stuff that has often been associated, especially with the body of a Black woman. And in some ways now, aspects of that are what we try to accomplish through plastic knives and anesthesia. So I have a lot of thoughts on that. I have a lot of feelings about that. A whole lot of feelings about treatment of Black bodies. Yeah.
Let me know when you read that, but I think you would really like it. So whenever you get to it, we'll have to talk about it, because I'd seen some of that before. In grad school, I did a paper on the theology in Beyonce's music, like the theological imagery she uses, which was one of my favorite papers I ever got to write. And one of the things I did in my research was talking, because, I was looking specifically at her self-titled album, and talking about the images of her body and like how that was positioned in a religious context. So I was doing research on kind of the history of like the Black female form in art. And it was really interesting to go back to even like the Roman period and kind of the fetishizing that like even the Greeks and Romans had of African women and kind of what they thought they looked like and what that implied about their sexuality. So it's like, this is like ancient shit, guys. Like it's hard to root out of our society because it's been going on for thousands of years.
And it's so crazy because it's weird to know that in a lot of ways your body as a Black individual can be a fetish and then also turn around and weaponized and used against you. And it is kind of a hard thing to kind of reckon with. I mean, we were talking about this before, but even something as like going to the doctor's office, that in itself is a tricky thing when you think about stuff like BMI index. It's like, it's not going to work. It's, that's not applicable to the entire, because if I go by BMI, y'all, I would look sick. Okay. Like there's no way I don't feel comfortable. I don't think I would feel healthy at what the doctor would tell me. Oh, this is what your weight is supposed to be. I'm like, that's never going to happen. So,
I have at one point been at the very high end of a healthy BMI range, and I was so thin, like super, super thin. And that was at like the highest range of like healthy BMI for my body. And I just like, that would never be my goal anymore. Like,
BMI is, as someone said, BMI is BS.
BMI is BS.
Please look up the history of the BMI. It was literally created by a racist, I think it was Dutch, European man way back when. And it is rooted in racism and eugenics. And it's the fact that it is the standard of care in the American Medical Society. Like the AMA forces doctors to use that. Insurance forces doctors to use it to talk about weight. Is infuriating because it's like, I'm willing to be told that I need to lose weight to be healthier or whatever, but it will not be based on BMI because that is like utter trash. It is hot water trash.
It is.
Let's see here.
Alexandra, that may just be your doctor. I wish that my doctor wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's scary too. I mean, because like it can create such disordered eating, and I think that's the thing too, is people will assume that like fat people can't have eating disorders, because that's also not true.
That's very not true.
I probably should have warned at the beginning, but like, yes, I think this entire conversation could be very triggering for people with eating disorders. I am recovering from an eating disorder. When I was at my quote unquote healthiest weight, I was eating only bologna and Jell-O every day. Like, and I was working out 4 hours a day. So, that, and again, I'm sorry if that was triggering for people, but like this, what Erin was saying about doctors. Everybody in my life was like, oh, you've lost weight. Like you're looking great. Ba, 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 ba. Like, So anyway, I feel like I really brought the mood down there.
No. I think that's important because like I guess that's the thing is like, it's not like health and weight can't be linked. Like, so I think that's the thing is it's not like, I don't think like you can have health issues related to weight. I think you can, but I think the way that should be diagnosed and the way that should be approached, like we need better ways to handle it. It's just not, BMI is not it.
Let's see here.
And like looking at how someone looks is also not it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like you can't look at somebody's body and know how healthy or unhealthy they are.
Okay,
Like that's also, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's awful, Erin. I'm so
Wow.
sorry.
Yeah.
That's no.
Ugh. Yeah, so in the video essay I did about historical
That was
accuracy,
so interesting. Yeah.
It was.
I really recommend, I'll try to remember to link to this panel. It was about plus size fashion in historical dress. And it's a fascinating conversation in general, but one of the great points that they bring up is the part of the reason why there's such a misnomer about like, oh, people were smaller in the past is survival bias of garments, because clothes that were in a larger size were essentially usually retailored for other people to use, whereas very small garments that fewer people could fit didn't get reused. So those are the ones that ended up surviving. So like there's this huge survival bias. It was a really interesting panel. I definitely
Really
recommend it to
interesting.
those who are interested. Yeah.
So interesting.
I have not picked this up yet, but I really, really want to read this. What we don't talk about when we talk about fat. I have heard really awesome reviews on this.
Okay.
And I think I saw Roxane Gay recommended, and she's, my Sherpa when it comes to what I should read. If she tells me to read it, it's like her and Imbra Maxkendi. If I see that they blurbed a book, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to read this now. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah.
Non-restrictive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think, spoiler alert, is a good example of that. I also think Rebecca Weatherspoon is great. Like Wrapped is a Christmas holiday romance novella by her.
With a great cover.
Yes, it has a great cover. It's got a plus size heroine who runs a bakery, and like they eat all these delicious desserts and have sexy times. It's
literally sounds like my best Christmas life.
It's like a great Christmas novella.
That sounds like what's the book that I read by Katrina Jackson?
I keep meaning to try her. I've heard she's fantastic.
You know what? Is this the one? Because there was one you talked about that I actually bought. I haven't read it yet. Let me see.
It's the
yellow dress. Is that the one you're thinking?
No. It's the one. Oh goodness! It's.
Oh no, that's Monica Walters. Sorry.
It's great. It's great plus size rep. It is a polyam relationship, and she is a baker. And I can't remember the name of it. I have to look it up, y'all. I have to look it up. Now, I feel like there were certain elements, because I gave the book 3.5 stars. I feel like there were other elements that she could have worked on. But the rep was good. And the polyam was hot. It was great. It was.
I like the way you said that. So just like.
Oh my goodness.
Yep,
gracious.
that was a thing.
I was just like looking at my Kindle because I know I bought a plus size romance because I haven't read it yet, but it was Training My Heart to Love You by
Monica Walters.
Yes. I bought it on my Kindle. I haven't read it yet, but I was like, oh, that's
yes, interested. That love interest is, what did I call him? He's country hood. So good luck.
Oh,
he's a very interesting individual. I will say, I cannot find this book.
You keep looking, and I'll just mention that I do think Talia Hibbert, I really like the way she writes plus size characters.
I do too.
She tends to fall more on the end of kind of like it's included, but it's not a plot point or a character growth point necessarily. It's just a part of how her characters are built.
I actually, interesting. So have you read A Girl Like Her?
I don't. By Talia Hibbert?
It's one of her indie ones from before she got. So it's really, I loved it a lot. It was, I think, one of the, like maybe the second book I read from her. But the heroine is plus size and autistic. And her weight is somewhat a factor because she had been in a kind of an abusive relationship where the guy she had been with was really into her but felt bad about it because of her weight and put some of that on her. And it was like, anyway, so it was interesting because it like, and then she's with this like lovely, lovely man. It was
As
so
Talia Hibbert heroes tend to be.
it's great. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting in terms of the way that can become an abusive situation. Because that's the thing, if you have a partner or a boyfriend or whatever who is making you feel bad about your body or your weight, like that's abuse.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And it's disheartening that I often feel like that's the backstory for heroines. Like I've seen a lot of plus size rep or plus size heroines and stories who their previous partner did that to them basically. And he's kind of portrayed as an asshole, but it's never really confronted as like, that was abusive. Like that wasn't just like him being a jerk.
Oh, no.
Like that's actually like
This is,
emotionally
like,
abusive.
literally abusive. And I just finally read, so it's interesting because in that book, he is with another woman, like he's married another woman. And there's a novella in the series where the other woman has now left him while pregnant with his baby because he was so abusive. That's a novella in the series, like the wife of this guy. Because he'd also been cheating, like, on his wife with the autistic plus size girl. Anyway, it's a whole like
this is where we need that meme of like trash for men. Take the whole
he was a dumpster
man
fire.
out.
Like he was the dumpster fire of all dumpster fires. But no, there's a novella that I just read this month. Actually, it's going up tomorrow in my mid-month wrap up. But called Damaged Goods, where it's the wife of him who had like been a jerk previously, but realized he was being abusive, and then he was abusive to her. So she's now left the relationship, is asking for a divorce, is pregnant, and reconnects with her high school sweetheart, and it's very sweet. So it is called abuse, and like it's anyway. So like I love the way Talia.
Ashley's horrified. She's not here for it. Was the one you were looking for called?
Yes, it is. This is the. Well, I don't know if y'all can really. That's the cover.
I can see her.
Yeah.
You can kind of see it. Yeah. So I feel like it's one of her older ones, so it needs some work. It's probably not as good as the ones that more people have been like reading within like the past couple of years. If I'm not mistaken, that probably is one of her first. But I'm telling y'all, the rep was great, and the polyam was. I keep going back to it because it was just so good.
Yeah.
It was so good. Because someone, when I did that bookish assumptions video, someone said to me, polyam probably wouldn't be your thing, and I'm like, oh no.
Contraire, my friends, how wrong you are.
I'm a hard sell on it, but like it can, if the right author, if she can really make me believe in the emotional relationship amongst all of the involved parties. But they've really got to sell me on the emotional journey.
I don't have to be sold.
I find it easier when it's speculative. Like I've read a lot of sci-fi series recently, sci-fi romance series where it's like their race is just polyamorous. So like I tend to like that because it's less like the emotional baggage of like people accepting them. And it's just like, no, in our society, like this is just how it is.
This is just how it's done. I could go for that. I think like one of the only examples, and it's not a romance, but like one of the only examples where I was like, I fully shipped the throuple was in the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin.
Which I still haven't read.
I know I haven't either. I keep meaning to.
Thank you. Good.
Okay, we can do that together at some point. I put it on my.
I need to do a reread.
Series I need to read.
So good. Oh my gosh,
I know.
you guys.
I'm sure I'm gonna like it. I think I feel almost intimidated by how good I know it's going to be. And then like, do you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like I need to save like a special moment for it where I have enough time to fully absorb it. And that just never seems to happen.
Yes, because you already know it's going to be amazing. But I'm like, my brain can't grasp.
Yeah, it's beyond my human comprehension. It's like I feel like the Psalms almost about it. It's like it's beyond my comprehension. Like your ways are not my ways. N.K. Jemisin, I don't know.
Guys, make you guys read it somehow. Oh man, I didn't even.
I like that we just introduced somebody to Polly.
Salter.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, speaking of speculative romance, or actually, I guess just in general, somebody take a shot. I'm going to recommend Ruby Dixon / Jessica Clare / Jessica Sims / Jill Miles.
Shockingly.
I know,
right?
she actually has a lot of plus size characters. And sometimes they're on a little bit of a journey. Usually they're like kind of at the end of that. But especially in her speculative ones, like the Ice Planet series, there are several of those heroines who are thick. And the Ice Planet, I mean, the blue alien peens are so excited. Sorry, men, not just their peens, but they're just so excited to have a mate, and like they don't really have a standard for what they think women should look like. So I actually quite enjoy plus size characters in sci-fi romance with aliens, because it's like they don't really know what humans are supposed to look like. So they don't really have like a standard. They're just like this one has bigger teats, this one has smaller teats. We don't know. Like I just like, and I'm like, okay, and like so.
I just read like that first main novella in the Rizdaverse series, and like she is also kind of plus size. But I thought what was funny is like in the alien dude's head when he's like his only context for a human woman was the mate of his friend who's like very petite, and he was like, I don't know how they have sex because she looks very small and I'd be worried about breaking her. And so then when he sees the heroine, he's like, oh, she is much bit larger.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of times they think like, oh no, this is better. Like I feel like she's this is gonna work better. Like it's a plus option of like, oh good, I'm not gonna break her. This is great. So anyway, my weekly recommendation: just go read Ruby Dixon.
Weekly.
It's my new murder bot.
Which I need
my new murder bot / ring shout. Have you not read Murder Bot?
No, I read the first one.
I made her read the first one when we did the book swap. I made you read Spoiler Alert and All Systems Red, which was
Now I can just hold this up whenever we get to this point in chat. Bethany sent me this. So anyway. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, exactly. They're not conditioned by Earth media, so they have no bias. They're just like, there we go.
Makes sense.
Good. Yeah, I think I can do a lot more things in general in speculative romance. Like I can do alpha males better in just there's not so much baggage around everything, I think.
Well, the author gets a chance to just set totally new rules. So I'm down. It's like whatever, like, okay, the only way you can create babies is that there's like 3 men and 1 woman. Like you need each of the, seed from each of them to make a baby.
That's how you propagate.
Okay. I mean, science. What do I know?
Not in the name of science.
Yeah, banging for science. That is like, I feel like a subtrope of. Somebody read Ring Shout Because of Us, which is a great point. I love Ring Shout.
So good.
Did
you read that yet?
You not.
Oh, you were gonna love it.
Joe, I knew it was
it's a novella. It's like this long.
No, well,
because you're gonna love it. You're gonna be like, it's gonna be like your new The Deep. I feel like.
You think so?
Up with Port. I think I could see that being. I mean, it's got a lot. It's really good.
Ooh.
I don't know. I'd be interested to see like if you all did like an actual live show talking about it, because it's doing a lot of stuff, but it's horror, so it's not like but it's very good. Yeah.
Because this is not a trolling question, apparently it's a serious question. What are your thoughts on a degree in organizational leadership? If this is your graduate degree and you're doing this instead of an MBA, I think it's actually a more functional degree in some ways, but I would not recommend it as an undergrad.
Think Mara just answered your question. I sure enough.
Thank you, Mara.
Well, he clarified he's actually questioning. I thought it was a troll, but he really wanted to know. So that is my opinion.
Yeah.
Take it for whatever it's worth. An internet stranger.
I mean, I think unless like because it really does shoehorn you into a very specific kind of career. So like it might like you will get a very specific skill set, and if you haven't actually, I would say like if you haven't actually worked in that industry and you're not
That's
really
exactly
sure
right.
that's what you're passionate about, like do something more general, because like because otherwise you might end up getting a job, like getting your first job in organizational leadership, and then you're like, oh crap, this is not what I actually thought it was going to be like. And so I don't know.
I also feel like if you're 22 trying to get a degree in leadership is like just dicey. Like I just think it serves you better if you've had job experience plus that.
Agreed. Like going back for a master's in organizational leadership once you have job experience as like a professional, sure. But as like an undergrad, nah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's just, internet strangers' opinions. You live your best life, but also, Ashley, you got somebody to read The Deep.
Hey.
So there you go. Have any of you read Octavia Butler's Exogenesis series? That's an alien book where a third gender alien joins each human couple. I haven't, but it sounds like I need to.
Yet. I mean, it's on my plan to read it at some point. So interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, and I thought I was cool just because I read a comic called Money Shot about these humans who go into space to bang aliens. It was so good.
Was it like a mail order bride kind of thing, or like were they sex workers?
A group of scientists who
for science.
Had
banging for science.
They were really banging for science because they were doing, I forget what the project was geared towards, but they ran out of money. So in order to get funding for this project, their goal was to get the money shot by banging aliens from different planets. Great.
I appreciate that in the future we may have different streams of revenue, like possible revenueizable ways to commodify our own bodies. That sounds great. It's not just human men.
It was great.
So funny. Somebody asked who wrote The Deep. Rivers Solomon wrote The Deep.
Yes, that's true.
Yes. There. Thank you. Yes, people got it. Cool.
Yes, Tim Seeley did write it. Tim Seeley does amazing work.
I love this. From alien sex to advanced degrees, all topics covered here. Whatever you need, we're experience. We can give you. We have opinions about everything. So.
I was gonna say we're opinionated ladies. Like we can talk. We can give you our opinion about anything.
We probably can.
Amanda, you were right. It was a plus. It was a lady alien with tentacles. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
So was it like tentacle porn stuff?
That is a thing. Like really, that's like a thing.
Oh, it's a thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The way Ashley's saying
I tell people, for me, nothing is off limits. Okay, I'm willing to try anything once.
Yeah, I can be persuaded, especially in space. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
I mean,
in the multiverse, there's.
I saw the name of the comic and I was like, huh? Why not? And it's in space.
That's the review on the back is just a shruggy emoji. Why not?
Why not?
Let's see here. Ashley be out here trying to get her suspension of disbelief trampled on. If you're writing some abstract speculative romance, she's gonna call your bluff. I'll suspend my disbelief for anything in space. No, in space, I'll suspend my disbelief for pretty much anything. I'm like, okay, sure.
Oh man.
Oh, that's right. Okay, who remembers Galaxy Quest?
Yes, I loved
movie.
Galaxy Quest. I loved it too. Oh, Ashley, you haven't seen it? It's so funny.
It's so funny. It's so got funny. Alan Rickman as a Shakespearean actor who's been forced into this like cheap like Star Trek knockoff TV show, and he like hates his life. He's like,
so good.
He's
so
got this
good.
awful fake prosthetic he has to wear all the time, and then their
It's like
little
it's a parody of like
it's a parody of Star Trek.
basically.
Okay.
It's so
And
funny.
they're
so funny.
they're on this TV show, and they're all like has-been wash-up actors at this point, but there's actual aliens who have been getting
Thinks
the
that it's
TV
real.
show
They've been getting the signal of their sci-fi
on their
TV
ship,
show.
and they think it's real, and so that they beam those actors up to their ship to come save them from the big bad aliens who are trying to take them over. So it's like Alan Rickman and Tim Allen and Sigourney Weaver.
What?
And they're all
So
like
good.
actors who are pretending to be like space heroes. It's
Oh man,
really
I haven't
amazing.
seen it in so long. This is making me want to rewatch it. Oh yeah, we used to love that. That was like a big fave in our family. We watched a lot of Galaxy Quest growing up. I think it came
I've
out
seen
in like
that
the 90s.
probably 3,000 times. Yeah,
Same.
I've seen
Yeah,
it
I've
so
seen it
many
so many
times.
It's so
And they
funny.
clap like this. It's so cute. Yeah. And whoever's point, to Beth's point, the female alien does have tentacles, so that's accurate. So if that's your thing, Ashley.
Okay, you know what? I feel like for our generation, like I kind of think Galaxy Quest was for white people what like Coming to America was for Black people. Like I think it's kind of like a
That I have seen.
I loved
many times.
I love Coming to America. It was on Comedy Central like every weekend growing up.
And they're coming out with a part 2.
How do you feel about this? I'm worried about it, to be honest.
It probably won't hold up, but I'm still gonna watch it.
I actually didn't, well, partly probably because my parents were like super conservative about stuff like this, but like the first time I saw it was after I married my husband, because he was like, "You've never seen Coming to America."
It's so good. Well, Coming to America, and then Trading Places. I feel like that, and then Ghostbusters 2 were constantly on Comedy Central when I was growing up. So I tried to watch Trading Places, and it's a tough watch in 2020 or 2021. I'm not sure it's aged that well, but
fair. Yeah, we didn't really have cable. By Grandma's Hammer.
Sorry, just the sheer contempt with which Alan Rickman says this line.
Oh, I love it so much.
You gotta see this movie, Ashley.
I gotta watch.
We need to do like a watch party or something. It's hilarious.
Right?
Oh. Oh man. Okay, sorry.
Okay, see, I'm glad I'm not alone. Yeah, not alone. I don't know.
Yeah.
Funny. Like, well, because my parents would have been like, "You're not watching this. There's too much like sexual jokes in here." Like with Coming to America.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like my favorite scene in that will forever be her just like hopping on her like in I was just like, well, this is an indelible image in my 10-year-old brain.
Classic.
Oh, well, I feel like we have covered a lot of ground. We did end up at alien porn, but you know,
as you do.
Sometimes you gotta go where the road takes you.
The one-liners for tonight have been.
Oh.
Like, who needs Comedy Central? We could just start our own show.
Listen, I'm going to start telling people that. Sometimes you just got to go where the road takes you. That's what I'm starting saying at work.
Sometimes it takes, you got to finish it, but sometimes it takes you to alien porn. And then I can't help but then associate that with Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Like you never know, if you step outside your door, you never know where it might take you. I don't think it ever took Bilbo to alien porn, but I can't say for sure. So. Oh.
I knew it was going somewhere. I said, wait, I'm waiting for the final sentence.
Oh man. James, I'm sorry. A cross stitch. Yes, I would love to see that. Somebody would like to work on it.
That would be a good one.
That's true. Bilbo does get on the boat to the distant lands, so we just don't know what we're there.
Oh, this reminds me of, there was just like, I don't really watch much of it, but I'll like see my husband watching clips, but there was an SNL skit about this woman getting gifted these like plaques, like wall plaques with like funny sayings. And so when they said the cross stitch, I'm like, it could be like that skit. The road takes you. Sometimes it leads to
It takes you to alien porn. Sometimes it does. We just don't know. If I get merch, maybe we'll put that on it.
Oh man.
Oh, well, in terms of plus size wrap.
Right.
Wow.
I think a lot of what we were talking about is basically just like not like treating fat characters as actual people in a story who can have life journeys that include struggles with their weight, but if that is the totality of who they are, maybe rethink your character development.
Yeah, like don't fetishize them, don't tokenize them, and don't pitch a book as confident plus size rep if it's not. I mean, like,
yeah.
I just can't believe they did that.
Oh my god,
they did us dirty. Oh man, I love it. People would make a pot of tea and be blood.
And then write a book about it.
Oh, yeah, that would be in his fancy little script in his book. Okay.
What if somebody wrote like a if Bilbo Baggins was writing The Hobbit as if it had been a Ruby Dixon story?
I mean, there's AO3 has it, I'm sure. Like it's out there somewhere on fanfiction.net. There's a Galaxy Quest like Bilbo Baggins mashup.
Yeah. You'd probably get like a whole nother take on like how they defeat the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, we're laughing, but I would read the shit out of this fanfiction. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh, someone wrote there and back again. Stop.
Oh
man.
I can't. I cannot. I cannot. That will never sit right in my mind ever again. There and back again.
Oh, no, man. Whew.
Thanks,
y'all.
I
mean, the dragons are canonical to Tolkien. We don't know that they're not dragon shifters who are looking to get it on with, the dwarves when they come to the.
Y'all, I'm a youth services librarian. You can't do this. You can't do this to me. You really can't.
We can tell some of you went through the fires of fanfic and came back out to the general population. Oh, if you only knew. I cut my teeth on the Sailor Moon message boards back in the day. Oh, whew.
Well, I'm sure we need that.
That's the thing. I know someone has written, like, it's somewhere out there.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably.
It's like internet rule 96. If it exists, there is dirty fan fiction about it. Like, that's just the reality.
So funny.
Oh, man. Beth, you are...
Exactly.
I'm not even putting that up there.
Out. Never again.
Recommending The Hobbit.
Miss Ashley, do you have a copy of The Hobbit? No, I don't, honey.
No, that's for grown folk. That's not for you.
That's not for you. Let's find something else.
I'm sorry that this live is just us sitting here laughing.
This is just
this is where we're at.
I can't believe that, y'all.
Rachel, I'm sure there is dirty Galaxy Quest fantasy.
Be.
I mean, I'm sure there is.
Alan Rickman is a fine figure of a man in that movie. I don't blame people.
I mean, and literally, doesn't it end with like one of the humans getting it on with like the tentacly aliens?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean,
it ends in
spoilers,
as a Ruby Dixon novel.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah,
she grew up
I'm sorry if
watching Galaxy Quest.
I'm sorry we've ruined The
sorry.
Hobbit for
So sorry.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
that is
well.
hilarious.
Ladies, this has been a wonderful conversation. It's brought
It
me
has.
some much needed laughter.
Indeed. We all need some laughter in our lives these days. Oh no.
Anyway, sorry.
Look, you know what?
I
If
got
like
the
the
giggles.
Hobbit trilogy had been like something else, it might have been more interesting.
I mean, honestly, those movies really could have used some perking up, and that would
They
have
really
been a
could have.
very interesting
Would have been an interesting twist. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm sorry if we've ruined Bilbo for people. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end this because I can't stop laughing.
This is just gonna devolve.
Thank
That
you.
seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm sure we'll have you back. I'm gonna publicly shame Ashley into I hope she will come on and do a Percy Jackson discussion with me at some point.
Whenever you're well,
Hey.
I should probably
we need to talk. I've only read the first 5. I don't know if we need to wait until I've read the Heroes of Olympus.
Yeah, let's do those 5. Like I need to finish my reread of the first 5, and then you need to read Heroes of Olympus before we do
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm envisioning like a pretty intense gushing about Uncle Rick and the joy of this series. So
it's so different. The next 5 in a good way, to me at least.
Okay. Well, I'm excited now. Well, I've been excited, but this will be fun. And Bethany, I'm sure you will be back at some point.
Yeah.
Yes.
That seems likely.
Thank you for joining me. Thanks to everybody for being in the chat and keeping us laughing. And I hope you guys have a great night. Bye.
Bye.